Practices shown in this video can be dangerous, so don't do this at home. I do not condone any violence against people or animals, and this video is just about a fantasy scenario and only serves entertainment purposes.
Welcome to the Nuclear Snail channel. And this is probably the stupidest zombie apocalypse weapon I've yet built. But not for the reason you might think, looking at this Angry Rooster. Now, this here is not attached, at least not yet. I might do so in the future because, you know, why not? As an Angry Rooster, this is kind of pretty cool. But originally I just did this, and then my girlfriend was like, this looks like an Angry Rooster with this green beak here. So I was like, hey, I have this piece of a saw blade lying around, let's add this and a goggly eye. And here we go, the Angry Rooster. But the real joke about this is how it performed, especially against a helmet I was testing this on, which you will see later in the video. I will also show you how I made this thing. Yeah, here's what it looks like up close. I will be talking more about the features of it as well. I like how the blade looks, not how it performs, especially due to this stupid serration here. The good thing about this though is that these two bolts right here just hold it in place, so it can be swapped out for anything else that is pointing this way or that way, like maybe a naginata kind of thing, or maybe just a better beak or whatever else. Without further ado, let's get to the original footage of the video and enjoy the snail fails. And if you like my channel, then subscribe and stuff, and also support me on Patreon. It's the first link in the video description. And also join the Nuclear Snail community group on Facebook. See you then, enjoy the video. A mix between a Bec de Corbin or Rabenschnabel, a mini version of that, if you will, or maybe an oversized kind of Kama thing on an axe handle looking thing, although this never was an axe handle. The handle is made from a board. This used to be a metal part from, I think, some old saw or something like this. Found it in my junk crate. And these langets are custom cut from aluminum. And this wrapping, which is mostly decorative here, well, it's just some wrapping. So I just made it from whatever I had at home. It was a really fast, quick, easy build. This is fairly light. Now, if I throw it from hand to hand, you can see how long it stays in the air. And it is pretty fast. So the destructive power of this doesn't come from a massive weight or something, it comes from, well, speed. Same as with the saw blade axe that I've shown you previously. This thing is all about speed. And it's fairly maneuverable. Now, design-wise, I really like about this, the color of this. Like, it has this, I don't know what this kind of coating is called, but you see this greenish coating, which is kind of like old school looking. And you find it on a lot of older machines and stuff. And I really like the contrast between it and this red decal I did here, same as I did on the saw blade axe, I think, and also on the Warhammer. I did this on purpose to have a complementary contrast. And I also echo this green through these wrapping cords here, which are also green, which, as I've said, are mostly decorative. Like, they might do a bit of something, but mainly this really isn't doing that much practically. And here, as you see, is the point of balance. So let's check out what this does to a board. If I would only hit it right, which is actually harder than it looks. Don't laugh. Right,
I'm not laughing.
No.
No.
Right, again. Not bad. So just split it. Cool. Let's do this again with a simple swing now. Nice. Didn't actually expect that. Now, before the camera battery dies, got this Motorbike Helmet. So it's just plastic with some foam inside. So it's not like a ballistic helmet or whatever. I tried this against a military Kevlar helmet and it didn't go very far. Let's see what it does against this. This is not as deep as I expected, but then again, this stuff is harder than it all looks. Especially if you look at people like Skellagrim, who really know what they're doing. It looks almost easy, but even with a lot of force, I mean, it's just barely poking through. Let's try another hit. And extracting this is kind of a pain in the ass now, because of those serrated elements there. So they look cool, yeah. Would probably do more damage against a mutant or whatever, against flesh. But as far as pulling this out, like, if you had this stuck in a zombie wearing a helmet, good luck. Oh, God. Camera still running?
Yeah.
So this is why serration on penetrating things like a Kama or a Raven's Beak Rabenschnabel
Your penis.
or my penis is not a good idea. But seriously, like they do not show that in zombie movies, do they? God, God. I need to get something else to get this out, like seriously. Like, yeah, just a plastic helmet. Hey, a vicious looking serrated blade. This will surely go through and kill the zombie. Like, yeah, no. Now the zombie is wearing this as a hat. So it would look like, oh well, I shouldn't put this on anymore because I actually wiggled it further in. This was not how deep in it was originally. So my attempts to get it out actually get it further in. It doesn't want to come out. Really gotta be careful here not to cut my foot off or something. Although this particular blade is fairly blunt. Oh, God. Come on, come on. God, freaking frick. Alright, let's try the method like last time. Oh.
Well done.
Yeah, did I put a warning somewhere not to do this at home or anywhere else? Because this is stupid. Camera's still alive?
Yeah. Going strong.
Come on! Like, I did not expect this, really.
I did,
My
somehow.
best video yet, huh?
Yeah. Whoa! Oh, oh, oh.
Finally, Christ! Okay, let's do this again.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I have a vicious zombie slaying club, comma.
And I just got
thing.
it unstuck. Now,
Yes.
let's do it again.
Let's do it again. I'm totally gonna kill this zombie right now.
And it's stuck.
Yeah. So that would not really be enough to kill a zombie. Might be unpleasant if the zombie was feeling anything. Maybe. But like, I'm not sure. Am I doing it wrong, or is it just not such a good zombie slayer thing? Or what's the issue here? But this sucks. Like, I wouldn't take this into the zombie apocalypse with me to kill zombies. At least not ones wearing helmets. Oh. Right, let's do the same method as last time.
Oh, poor snail.
I mean, this does look super cool. It's a great prop, but like, wow, this sucks for killing zombies. Let's try with two hands. Check if there is anything behind me. Okay, that's a bit better. But then again, this zombie is dead. But good luck getting it out again. I'm honestly not sure if it's all just because of the serration or not. I might even change the blade geometry here entirely, just to see if I can make a penetrating blade that will not get stuck horribly like this. Because this is really awful. God. And I bet you this is gonna jump back right into my face and slug me in the nose. I gotta love my girlfriend's laugh at this thing. Like, oh, it's gonna slug him in the nose. That's great. Alright, enough of this. This sucks. Let's do it with something that sucks a bit less. By the way, interesting use for this is this. Like, yeah, that works. And I might be wrong, but I think they actually have a logging tool for a task like this that does exactly that. Because, you know, if you have logs on the floor, like picking it up like this, what is it called? Okay. Like this, and prop it up. So, this is interesting. Let's try a piece of wood like this. I just want to see how far in it goes and if I can get it out again.
Nope.
Yeah, so this is actually nice, and getting it out of wood will be a bit less difficult. Yeah, there we go.
Whoa.
Out again. Yeah, that all that trouble with the helmet is because it penetrates the shell, and then it's just okay. Too many freaking tree stumps here. It just goes into the shell and then gets stuck in the shell. While on a piece of wood like this, it doesn't really, well, it doesn't go through anything. Two hands now. Yeah, I mean, but it doesn't go as deep as you might think. Like, you look at this thing and you're like, oh, this is gonna like go through all of it, but nope. The camera's still alive.
Yep.
Wow, that battery warning also sucks. It's like, oh, the battery's dying. We're filming, what, 10 minutes now?
Mm-hmm.
I missed?
Yep.
Yeah. And this is nice. What else can we kill? Okay, so a piece of aluminum, this should not have a problem going with it, but I should have a problem hitting it because it's really slim. And I'm gonna put it on top of a board like this. Well,
Ta-dum.
here goes the board, but I missed the aluminum entirely. Let's try that again, a couple of times. Okay, now I hit it, and as you see, it tore through the edge where I hit it. This is exactly as expected, unlike that freaking helmet. Let's do this again.
Whoa.
Yeah. So this is no problem at all.
Try hitting the middle.
Alright, I'll try hitting the middle. It's not as easy as it looks, actually. Well, this was the middle.
Nice.
Although a weak hit, but more precise. Obviously, I'm not super trained with this thing or whatever. Just... Right, let's try this helmet again, but this time we'll just smack it with the back end. And hopefully this doesn't come back flying at me. This is a terrible idea.
Don't, please.
It's a terrible idea.
Don't do it.
Oh yes, let's do it.
Just don't.
Really?
No.
Oh, maybe not. Alright, let's put this helmet on a tree stump, which simulates my IQ. Well, it's actually too big. Let's see if that changes anything. I'm already looking forward to liberating that spike again. Here we go. Nope, didn't change a thing. Still same bullshit. Okay, what else can we kill? This is where I would usually do pull-ups, as evidenced by these self-made pull-up bars. And now I'm just gonna pull up myself on this. Okay, it holds. Question is for how long? But it did hold for now. Yeah, also, by the way, after all of this swinging around and stuff, there is no wobble in it whatsoever. The blade is also still as straight as it ever was, so no damage at all. Yeah, but then again, getting it unstuck from that helmet sucks, so I really don't know what my thoughts about this are, but it looks cool. Let's leave it at that.
Here's how I made it. It was actually a pretty straightforward build, although I had to take some time to figure things out regardless. So first I wanted to have this wrench be the metal bit on this, and I just took my metal cut-off wheel on a rotary tool and chopped off a part of it, leaving a part of this right here, whatever it's called, looking like this. I polish it up a bit using the power file so that I just don't cut myself when working with this further, although it's still obviously a bit sharp here, but not this nasty, which is what it looked like just after the cut-off wheel. Anyway, a wrench like this, and then I try to figure out the handle, and I settle on this board, figuring that the board is thick enough to slot the wrench into it. So I cut a slot using a hacksaw. Then it looks like this, and now I have to somehow remove this part from the middle. So for that I just drill it out. The drill has the perfect thickness at 3 millimeters, so I just drill from this side and then from that side, and then I use the file, which is a metal file, which didn't work that well on wood, but still I use it to clean up the slot a bit, because what I want to avoid is that the slot is too narrow, because then the wrench would just tear the wood apart along the grain. This is literally how you split wood, and that's what I do not want to happen here. When the slot is done, I just slot it in, and in a pinch, in a zombie apocalypse, I guess, I could already use this, but I of course proceed to mark out some lines here, as you can see here in faint pencil, so that I can cut out then this shape on the scroll saw. And then I proceed to drill through the wood and through the wrench, at which point the wrench tells me to bug off, and I decide that I am not getting through that. I even waited a couple of days and got some new drills, and this was the result. After this, the drill didn't want to go further, and I was like, no, I'm not doing this again. After the Warhammer thing, when I tried to drill out that head a couple of builds back, like half a year ago or so, no, I'm not ruining a bunch of drills again trying to get through steel which doesn't want to be drilled. So I decide to ditch the wrench and focus on the handle for now. I mark out a couple of more shapes on this pommel, decide to go for this less angular and a bit more flowing shape here on the pommel, which ends up looking like this. Also on the head I remove those two corners to make it less square. I did not do this cut, luckily. You'll see later why, because later on, like, the slot for the wrench goes up until here, and later on I need to go deeper because the head I ended up using is a bit slimmer, so I just had to, well, make another slot basically, but in the same spot, if it makes sense. Anyway, I end up deciding to go for this sort of a really rough look here. Those cuts are also done on the scroll saw, but, you know, slanted. So I deliberately decide this time to make it a bit messy, make it a bit even kind of tribal, but not really. At that point I was considering going like fully tribal with this, like if it was like a primitive tool or something like that. But didn't do that in the end. But anyway, I do a bunch of, you know, really rough angular cuts here on the scroll saw, and then I go outside and carefully, in a controlled manner, I apply some burning using this propane torch to the wood, ending up with a look like this. And then I use this really rough sanding wheel or whatever it's called. I just use it by hand, sanding off bits of it. So I round the whole thing off, make it nice and smooth. Of course, this one leaves a lot of well, rough stuff still. So after using that, which is super rough, I use 3 other grits of sandpaper, with, well, the last one being just some polishing fleece, but this is like a rough sandpaper, fine sandpaper, and then polishing fleece in the end in the handle area so that it's really nice to hold. For my props, I really like it to be, well, so that it handles well like a real thing would. I just like when the feeling is just as appropriate as the looks. So now I decided to ditch the wrench, as I've said, and I tried to find another candidate. Here is a piece of the saw blade. If you saw my saw blade axe video, this is what remained of that saw blade. So consider using that for a seg, but then I settled on this part, which was a part of a saw, like a manual saw that you hold in the hand, like a hand tool saw. I don't know which part exactly, but I smacked it with a hammer a couple of times. It seemed not brittle, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna use this then, and it looks kind of cool. I like how this looks. It reminds of a mantis because of the color and because of this sort of serration-ish thing, which I then, using again the rotary tool with a metal disc, with a metal cutting disc, I make this, well, more sharp and more aggressive, as you can see here, instead of it just being square. So I hold it to the piece and consider how it will go in. As I've said, I need another slot for this because this is, as you can see here in the original wrench slot, this is too thin. I think it's like a millimeter thinner. So I mark out how deep I want to go in. Now it probably makes sense what I said before about this part. Right? So this new slot goes up until down here. The old slot was up here. Sorry about this. After marking this out, I again put it in a vise and take my hacksaw to it, and then also use the drill and the file. And this worked a lot better, just wrapping some rough sandpaper around the file and moving both at the same time slowly, because the sandpaper did like a much better job on the wood, because this is a metal file, it's way too fine for wood, so it goes super slow. And then what I'm showing right here is that I've accidentally actually created an angle while cutting with the hacksaw. Like, I could have told you this is on purpose. This is not. I just cut it badly, but this was a lucky accident that it slanted exactly in the direction in which I wanted it to go, for realism purposes and also for looking cool, because as we know, when you swing, you do so in a curve rather than straight, so the blade or the beak being aligned like this is, well, it makes physically more sense. So in the next step, what I do is drill a hole, number one. Then I put a file into it just to fixate it in place. It doesn't have to be a file. It was just what I had lying on the table at that time. And with this hole being fixated in place, I pivoted around until I kind of match the slot down here, you know, the slot's end. So I know that this bottom edge of the green thing is aligned with the bottom edge of the slot. And then I drill another hole just through everything, just like you see it laid out here. So I end up with two holes like this. These are 5mm thick, I think. And then oh wait, I didn't drill through the whole thing. I didn't drill through the wood here just yet. I was just trying to figure out at which distance from the first hole I want the second one to be, so that there is enough material left towards the edge, but so that the holes are still as wide apart as possible for, well, better physics. So here I use a piece of duct tape to fixate it in place, and the other hole is held in place by this file still, and then I just gently, really carefully swung it around. Well, not really swung, just, you know, like in slow motion, to figure out if this angle fits the curve. And yes, it does. As it turns out, that slot I accidentally cut before here under an angle has just the perfect angle. I just did it instinctively, man. No, just kidding. It was just a pure accident. So after that, I also drilled the second hole finally. And then I decide to, well, do this line right here, this cut right here, to remove this excess wood so that the top of the head here is aligned with the bottom of this, right? Of this green thing, for aesthetics. no other purpose for it than aesthetics. So you can see this line is parallel to that line. Then I decided to add some aluminum languets. Now these are 2 sheets of aluminum I duct taped or double-sided adhesive taped together so that I just do 1 cut on the scroll saw and have 2 identical parts. Each one of them is 1.5 millimeters thick. And yeah, I probably already explained that in a video where I show this thing and swing it around in front of the camera, why this still works in my opinion, at least for what I'm doing here, which is really mostly prop work. So after they are cut, I also fixate them in place with double-sided adhesive tape. So this one is taped to this side so it just doesn't shift around. And then I flip the whole thing over and use those holes I've already had in the wood to, well, to drill through this. You can see here a sliver of it down here, like there is this metal stripe. That is the languet on the other side. When it's done, I flip it over and have these 2 beautiful holes, and also did this 3 smaller holes here. I didn't want to do big holes on the shaft because that would remove just too much wood. What I want to happen here is just those 3mm holes accommodate 3mm bolts later on, and they press it together, creating hopefully a good connection. And I still left the double-sided adhesive tape just in there so that it doesn't have a chance to shift around like this, so the languet and the wood do not shift around in an arc that I'm showing right now when force is applied here when the whole thing strikes something. I apply some spray paint and then scratching up and sanding it on the languet to do this old distressed effect. So these are the parts. I have 2 of them. You can see here the double-sided adhesive tape that I mentioned. Because, you know, just tearing it off of the wood once it's glued to it, if you do it like sideways, it's possible. But if it's pressed together firmly like this, like here, and then you try to shift it against each other, if that makes sense, with the double-sided adhesive tape being there under a lot of pressure, like that really makes it much more difficult to shift. It's really, really tough then. So you can see here I already added the 3 small bolts, and now it's the time to attach the head. I use 2 bigger bolts here. I do not use any washers here because the languet already acts as the washer. And then I change the blade geometry a bit, so you can see that the point is no longer down here. You can see that here the point is in line with back here. Down here it no longer is the case in the final, because that is the optimal point of impact, as I found out by striking a couple of boards. So there is that. Now this is sorry, this is not a good blade geometry by any means. It's just, you know, a rough zombie apocalypse rush job, and that's fine for what it is. So here is what it looks like, and then I add up some wrapping. It's really more for aesthetics than for anything practical. I mean, you could possibly do wrapping like this, that does help. Maybe this helps a bit, but really this is just more for the looks. And then I also add some, well, diluted acrylic paints or fabric paints or both to the robes to make the whole thing look like it's not super brand new. And this is pretty much it for how I've built this.